play and call it work.
Hi there, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk with me, Chris. For next week's episode, it'll be MiniWarGaming Steve, and so for comments for him, have @Steve in the comments below. If you have any responses to what I've said today, then have it @Chris. But otherwise, I think at this point, a lot of us already know the drill by now, I think. And for new viewers, well, that's how it goes. Let's just dive right into these. Granix89. I'm a wargamer and a Christian, and it does not affect me in the slightest. If it is the other Christians being offended by the fact that they're playing a fictional war game, then they need to lighten up and realize to have fun without it affecting your faith. Yes, I think everybody needs to lighten up at some point, right? Can't take yourselves too seriously because, well, you know, it's just no fun. I mean, come on. Who takes themselves that seriously? Please. Just have fun, especially in wargaming, for God's sakes. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. We're all here to have fun, and, you know, it's a game, for God's sakes. I mean, it's a game. It's a hobby. Painting, making terrain, you know, playing with our little toy soldiers all over the table, making pew-pew sounds as we go. How can you take that seriously? I don't know, but, you know, it's really just us playing with our toys again. And yeah, I mean, we're supposed to have fun when we're doing that. And painting is a time to relax. You know, some of us, you know, for school or work, what have you. You know, you just want to sit down, relax, paint your miniatures. You know, assemble your Space Marines, convert them. You know, what have you. It's just time to relax and reflect. And so, how can that be in any kind of you know, conflict with anybody's, you know, faith, when it's time to reflect and, you know, chill out? So yeah, let's not take ourselves too seriously, people. Day T, Chris, what was your first favorite model that you've painted? One that you've finished and you've been exceptionally pleased with yourself. Do you have it on hand to show us? No. Any model that I've finished, like in my own time, man, those models are far and few between. Models I've finished for MiniWarGaming, as far as tutorials are concerned. One of my favorites is the Celestian Prime from Age of Sigmar. That model, I was happy with, but there was way more stuff I could have done. There was way more subtle blends I could have done on it. There was more textures I could introduce into the model. The base I was not entirely happy with, but at some point, you know, you gotta let go and just kind of, you know, just be done with the piece, and you know, and you know, be done with it. A lot of artists probably feel the same way about a lot of their pieces, even ones who are getting ready for competition and stuff like that. You know, you get it to a point where, you know, you think, okay, I'm happy with it, and let's run with it and see what happens. And yeah, I mean, there's none that we just kind of as soon as the last brushstroke goes on and go, I'm done. There it is. That's it. You know, masterpiece. I don't think at least not in my experience, I've never had that moment where I just the last brushstroke and just went, aha, it was done. You know, usually whenever I'm working on a model and, you know, I'm getting close to the end, I usually take a few steps away and I'll walk away, and, you know, I'll come back an hour later, maybe a day later, and look at the model and go, okay, what needs to be done? Where did I make a mistake? Where, you know, did I miss a spot here? You know, things like that. And yeah, but otherwise, a model that I was just, you know, pleased with myself, no. Those moments are very few and far between. Again, because when I'm working for the tutorials and trying to get the model done, I'm usually under a time constraint, so I don't have a whole lot of time to do all the little things that I'd like to do, you know, to really bring a model up to, you know, a high displace type standard. It's just, you know, anybody who paints to that level will tell you that it takes a lot of time, many hours. And, you know, some models that you see like in competition sites and stuff like that, you're talking 100 plus hours. And so could you imagine if Matthew had to pay my wage for 100 plus hours to do a tutorial on a model. Just not going to happen. Just not going to happen. So, that's why a lot of the models in the tutorials, they only get to a certain level, and then, you get the video. I mean, because again, painting to a really high standard, it takes a lot of time. Fleshcraft. Kris, is English your mother tongue? And do you know any other languages apart from English? English basically is my mother tongue. I was raised in London, Ontario. Not really around a whole lot of family members, stuff like that. And so I didn't really get a chance to pick a lot of it up. As far as Ojibwe is concerned, which is what I am and what I'm referring to here, as far as being my mother tongue, because, if you're Italian, you'd assume Italian is your mother tongue, right? If you're French, right? So you would assume such a thing, but not the case, which is the case really for a lot of, Native Americans, I think, that are raised outside their communities. And even within the communities, you find that, not everybody is on the same level of reviving their languages. But it is a movement that is growing and, getting stronger every day. And my children, they speak it better than I do. And they took it in school. And it wasn't a language that was offered in my school. It was only French or English. And I think even Italian and Spanish, I think, was offered. But, not any of the Native American languages. So, which is probably, a bad thing, I think. But, hey, it's where we're at, right? And so, yeah, I understand a little bit. I can speak a little bit. Mostly just common expressions and things like that, introductions and things. But my children, they can count fluently and, know a lot of, different expressions and, things like that. So, because they took it in school. So, it really does matter when, you do learn. I'm still, trucking away with it today, but, no, it's, English is basically, and, English, I barely speak that well anyway, so. I doubt Ojibwe would be any better. Might as well just start learning Chinese or something. I don't know. Evil Party Girl. Dude needs a couple of drinks. I don't know what that's about. Jonosaurus. Kris, how old were you when you started painting miniatures? I was around 13 or 14. I was around 88, 89 that I started really getting into this hobby. I was living in Quebec at the time. My cousins were playing Warhammer 40,000. I had no idea what it was at the time, but I saw the little miniatures and I saw them they were painting, and I was like, wow, this stuff's really cool. And so then I saw Space Hulk, and Space Hulk was the gateway into this. And I loved Space Hulk. It was everything that that captivated my imagination when I was a young guy like that. And I didn't know what 40K was, and it wasn't until I started buying this stuff and getting models, getting paints, and of course my painting at the time was atrocious, of course, and I was using different paints like Testers and Ralpartha and Citadel paints and all sorts of stuff, and of course learning the hard way. Testers and enamels don't mix with acrylics, so you don't do that. You don't try and blend it and do anything like that. Any kind of fun stuff like that, with those paints. So, yeah, but it was around that. So 13 or 14, which was 80, 89, was when I discovered, and so we're at 2016 now, so I'll leave you to do the math as far as how old I am. Now, mind you, I didn't do it, I haven't been doing it consistently since then. When I hit about 15, 16, other things, kind of, get your attention. And, I was still doing the hobby, but I wasn't, as active, as it was, because hanging out with friends and partying and, stuff like that. And, then get married, start a family, and still was, working on my hobby. And it wasn't until 4th edition 40K that I took a long break. It was about a year, I think, where I didn't even touch a paintbrush, and I didn't really do much. And as far as the painting is concerned, really, the painting, I was always, slowly progressing here and there. And it wasn't until and even the internet wasn't really a big thing then. And so there wasn't like a lot of these painting guides and tutorials and things like that online. And so there wasn't a lot of resources, right? So you had to pretty much, rely on the magazines, White Dwarf and, the big painting guides that Citadel would put out, and, other companies would put out painting guides. And, there just wasn't a lot of resources to really kind of expand. And it wasn't until I started working for MiniWarGaming that, I actually started really kind of paying attention to my techniques, to, where I was as a painter. And, I didn't really see it before, but I do see it now that, my technique has changed slightly since I started working for MiniWarGaming. When I was, if you watch some of the earliest videos that I was doing versus some of the videos I do today, and, the progression, there's even a progression within my own technique, today. So, but of course that comes from just, learning and, just wanting to keep learning and learning and learning and learning. Some people hit a point where they're happy with their painting, and that's fine. But, myself personally, I like to keep pushing myself as far as what I can do, what I can master. And, and also because too, it also requires me to instruct a lot of you guys who are new to this. And so I need to be able to break down a technique and explain it to you guys that in a very fundamental and easy kind of way to break it down and, make it not seem so complex. And so far, so good, because a lot of people have complimented that, the videos have helped them, and, their painting was garbage before, and then they start watching videos, and they're easy to follow, and so that's a good thing. And of course, it always makes me feel good that knowing that I've helped people get beyond their initial fear of a lot of these techniques that they were initially fearful of before, and just make it seem a little bit easier for them. So, and it is. It's all these painting techniques are easy. There's nothing scary about this stuff. It's painting, for God's sakes. It's not splitting atoms. Pollock, Kris, what is your opinion on alternate models being used and painted in 40K? I've considered adding some Puppet War troopers, which look more like Future Soldier in 40K. This is due to the cost, as they are the same cost, and I want to add them to my current 5K guard as an alternative. Sorry for rambling, just curious on your opinion. I'm all for it, alternate sculpts, especially good-looking sculpts. And there's a lot of companies out there who produce some really good-looking sculpts. There's some companies out there who are producing, pretty mediocre-looking sculpts, in my opinion. But Puppet War does produce some really nice-looking orc stuff. The one that really captured me was, and I haven't purchased anything from them yet, but I probably will in the near future, is Victoria Miniatures. She produces some really interesting conversion kits for Imperial Guard, making different formations, like doing Praetorians or Mordians or Highlander, which look like kind of like Scottish guys. They got the kilts and everything like that. Really, really cool. But the one that really got me was the Tanith. She produces Tanith units, and I still have all my Gaunt's Ghost stuff. And I've always dreamed of doing a Gaunt's Ghost army, but Games Workshop never produced any guard troopers, like any blister packs of just or at least affordably, box troops of to fill out an army, right? Because if you read the books, they start off as a small group, but then by the end, they keep getting bigger and bigger, and replenishing the numbers and things like that, right? And so, yeah, a Tanith army would be a lot of fun, especially for like a lot of scenario type play and things like that. And Victoria Miniatures, that's one company that produces really good miniatures. Puppet War, man, there's a bunch. There's some, like I said, that are not so awesome. Back before before there was a model for the Warlocks, Chapter House had a Warlock conversion kit for Jet Bike, and I was never impressed by it. and I never bought any because, well, I didn't really care for them. And I mean, I really wanted Warlocks on jet bikes, and so I was converting my own. But I seen those, and I was like, you know, they're all right, I suppose, but you know, they just didn't have the same feeling as the rest of the army. And I mean, like, you know, you realize that, yeah, you don't want to get sued, but I mean, like, you can go a little bit further and, you know, make something that looks, you know, somewhat appropriate. I mean, you know, but yeah, it's like, that's one example. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, some people really like the work that they do, and you know, I mean, but like you said, like, there's all sorts of companies that are producing really, really great stuff. You know, I recently purchased Aegis Defense Line when I went to Adepticon from MiniWarGaming, and he produces Aegis lines for Orcs and Chaos and things like that, and they all have that feeling that belong to the army. Even Necrons, I think he had, and the sculpts look really, really good. And so I got to buy these because, you know, I bought the ones that were for Eldar, and they look the part. They look like Eldar Defense Line, and so I'm happy with the purchase, and I think they fit in. And you know, like, if Games Workshop is not going to produce these kits, then, you know, it's up to third-party retailers or manufacturers to produce these, because, you know, there's a market for it. And so, you know, people want to spend their money on stuff and, you know, don't have the skills necessary to convert or, you know, make from scratch or, you know, what have you. So, yeah, there's a market for it, and why not? I mean, you know, if people can produce cars, you know, BMW can produce a car, and somebody else can produce a part for it that, you know, makes it run more efficiently or more stylish or, you know, things like that. Why not? You know, it's a free market, right? Tibbs Ironblood. Hey, Kris, as the most handsome man at MiniWarGaming, do you ever feel weighted down by your good looks? How do you ever manage to fend off all the ladies? Yeah, that seems like a loaded question. Do I feel weighted down? No. Do I feel oppressed because of it? Yes. Oh yeah, of course. You know, as any good-looking man will tell you, that jealousy from coworkers is, you know, a thing. Fending off the ladies? Not really. Maybe in my dreams, but otherwise, no. That's not something that's a reality. Crazy4394. Kris, do you run any Dark Eldar allies with your Eldar? Do you make up fluff for it? I do have. I did start some witches for my Samhan force, mainly because I wanted a close combat element for my primarily jet bike force, right? Because once my jet bikes got into hand-to-hand combat, I was, I was pretty much done. They were, I mean, like, especially before jet bikes got their big boost in Codex Eldar and even Craft World Eldar, jet bikes, were really good, maneuver around, out and outflank, and present lots of firepower to one specific point. But once close combat occurred, it was done. It's not like Space Marines on bikes where they can pretty much deal with it, and they're way tougher, right? And so I wanted a close combat element, and I figured, well, Dark Eldar Witches, because at the time, Banshees and Scorpions just weren't really a good fit because they were kind of pricey, and I had to throw them in the Wave Serpent, and that's another 100 and some points, and like the unit was going to cost too much. Whereas I could grab some Witches, and even on foot they're pretty darn fast. But I could throw them in a cheap Raider, which was half the cost of my Wave Serpents. Then all the better. I mean, and once Witches are in close combat, they're a pretty darn good close combat unit, and they can take on a lot of stuff if you equip them right. And yeah, so that's really what I wanted, was Witches, like a Witch Coven for my Samhan. And writing fluff for it, I didn't really consider writing fluff for it or anything like that. Samhan Eldar are like the barbaric Eldar. They're feral. They'll still fight for honor and things like that. And so, them cohorting with their dark evil cousins doesn't really seem that strange, because they'll work with the pirates. They'll work with they pretty much work with anybody, especially if honor dictates something like that. Like if somebody came into and said, well, you owe us a pledge of your allegiance because back when so and so day, we helped you, and so now it's time for you to help us. I'm sure Samhan will be, all right, let's go, and off they go. And whereas other Eldar, they basically avoid the fight, right? Because you're fighting against extinction. Whereas Samhan, they're not really fighting against extinction. They're just fighting to retain honor. and which is, you know, kind of fun aspect and kind of something interesting, you know, to the whole fluff and character of the craft worlds. I think that's it for that page. This is from Bad. Kris, what are your thoughts on the new frequently asked questions that Games Workshop have been putting out? Specifically, the ruling on Jinx, so passengers of a jinking vehicle suffer the same effects. I think that's the way it should be. I think if a vehicle is jinking, or, you know, it takes like a stun result or stuff like that, because I remember it was like, I think 3rd or 5th edition that result affected the passengers. And it should always, like, whatever happens to the vehicle, it doesn't make any sense that a rhino is going to travel along and then take a las cannon hit and become stunned and immobilized, and everybody inside just kind of goes, well, we're going to go now, you know. No, that tank would have been rocked, and, you know, like, the guys inside have been thrown all over the place, and everybody's kind of like, oh man, what happened, you know, like, what's going on? And so, yeah, I actually like that in that regards, and that's the way I think it should always have been. Yeah, passengers should always be affected by the vehicle that they're being carried by. It feels like that hurts the Dark Eldar far more than other races, as we rely on jinking just to get our troops anywhere reliably. Yes, it does hurt, but I mean, in those instances where, you know, you have your raiders and stuff like that, I mean, you got to factor in points cost. You know, you're going to be fielding way more stuff than your opponent a lot of times in those kind of instances, especially if you deep striking raiders into the table and they're coming in and you're going to unload warriors and you're just going to overwhelm an opponent in an area. You know, it's all tactics, you know. Yeah, some rules kind of seem like they do kind of hurt, but I mean, it also forces you to, you know, maybe be a bit more cautious with something that is as delicate as, you know, a Dark Eldar Raider, because Dark Eldar Raider is like one of the most fragile vehicles out there. And, you know, it's not like a Wave Serpent, right? But even a Wave Serpent, it would make sense that, you know, they take a hit and, you know, it becomes stunned. Well, everybody inside should be stunned, because, I mean, the whole vehicle just got rocked and everybody's like, can you imagine, like, everybody in a rhino? I mean, it looked like little dominoes, like a rhino getting hit in the front, and all the little Space Marines' heads are like bobbing against each other, like ding, 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 ding. Because they're all standing shoulder to shoulder inside a rhino, right? I mean, like, there's not a lot of room in a rhino for 10 Marines. And so you imagine they're all shoulder to shoulder. And so when it takes a bump, or, you know, when it takes a jump or something like that, and it hits a big bump, their heads are hitting off the ceilings, and yeah. So, no, I think I kind of prefer it that way. HCLS315. That just rolls right off the tongue. Kris, what do you think of the new Death to the Skies rules? Will we finally be seeing a Crimson Hunters group for your Eldar? Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I got to pick up some more of them, because I like flyers. Everybody knows I like flyers because, well, I mean, you can see a bunch of flyers all up there, right? So everybody knows I like me flyers. And yeah, I mean, the Crimson Hunters, you know, they're an aspect warrior. And so I like my Crimson Hunters. You know, I don't have any yet, but, you know, an aspect warrior, and, you know, something to add into the force as well. There we go. And as far as the rules are concerned, adding a new phase into the game, I don't know, because, I mean, like, the game's already pretty bogged down as it is. And I was actually kind of surprised that, you know, like, psychics, it became a phase again, right? And yeah, because for a long time, I mean, like, there was a psychic phase in the game, and then they got rid of it, and it became just kind of part of, you know, taking a leadership test and stuff like that, and, you know, failed, whatever, right? But now, you know, the psychics is a phase again, and so now with the whole dogfighting phase, you know, is it something that, you know, really, was the game lacking this phase? I don't know, but I don't know. Now personally, I haven't played with the rules yet, so I'm not entirely sure. I should squeeze in a few games just to play, because, yeah, I haven't played in a while, so. But yeah, Crimson Hunters, definitely. You're definitely going to see some Crimson Hunters. And I might actually pick up like another Wraith or Hemlock as well, just because it's a lot of fun. They're really good flyers. Chosen 1. Kris, Has someone ever annoyed you to the point you just sprayed them with your airbrush to make them leave? If not, are you considering it now? Also, your painting styles are amazing and your tutorials made me a better painter. Chozon 1. Well, thank you, Chozon. Yeah, actually, someone annoy me? Yes, because sometimes I'll find Cork just standing behind me, and yeah, I'll give him a little spritz, especially when I'm flushing the airbrush and I've got like Windex in it. Yeah, just spray it right in his face. Give him a good blast of Windex. Nothing mellows him out more than a good blast of Windex in the face. But otherwise, no, I don't spray anybody with the airbrush. I don't know, just it doesn't seem necessary. You know, unless you load it with like alcohol or like isopropyl alcohol and sprayed it right in their face, you know, kind of like a can of mace or something, you know. But no, nothing like that. It just seems, a little too extreme, I think. And not entirely necessary. So no, we're not going to go there. Evil Party Girl. Hi, Kris. I like your shows mainly because you're easy to listen to. I am a poor painter and don't aspire to master it. Okay, well, at least we know where you stand. That said, do you think you could do a one model in 10 minutes special, like tips and tricks to get a model respectfully table ready, but nothing too flashy? Is that something you'd consider? Yes, it is something I'd consider. I consider all things. A model in 10 minutes. Now, are we talking like beginning to end? Because cleaning a model can take time. If you're doing like a styrene plastic model and you're using plastic cement, which melts the model, that takes time to cure. So I mean that slows down your work process, your work time. You know, sometimes waiting for ink layers to dry and things like that can slow you down, right? But otherwise, doing a model in 10 minutes, I mean, like I'd imagine a Space Marine, you could probably get done to 10 minutes, maybe, quickly. I don't know how good it'd be. It'd probably look like crap, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a tough one because I mean, like, you know, what do you want to accomplish with it, right? Like, what would benefit you as, you know, not an aspiring painter, but, you know, for somebody out there who wants to learn how to paint quickly, I guess really, you know, you could work on, say, for example, brush technique, you know, where you do use techniques like, say, the loaded brush, right? Recently was watching those Painting Buddha videos, and they were talking about the loaded brush technique, which is kind of like a two-brush blend, but it's only using one brush, right? You lay the color down, and you pretty much blend with the two colors on your brush, and you blend right then and there. I don't think you're going to get very far in 10 minutes, even using a technique like that, because again, it's illustrating the fact that you're trying to use a little bit of care. And so when you are trying to get something to look somewhat respectable, yeah. But I mean, getting space, like say for example, getting Space Marines done in like 10 minutes, it's really not that hard because, for example, okay, if you clean your models really well, got all the mold lines off, okay, you hit them with Army Painter, spray, bang, you got this base color down, boom, done. You pick out the eyeballs, you pick out the little vents, you know, the little things in behind the knees, stuff like that. Give them a quick gloss coat, slap some decals on them, give them a matte sealant again, and bang, you're done. And how long would that take? Well, you got to wait for drying cycles, so it'd probably still take you longer than 10 minutes, but that's about the quickest way in the fewest steps to get a Space Marine done, and tabletop as well. And that's not even any shade washes in there. That's just laying base coat down. That's just laying base colors down. That's just, like say for example, Blood Angel. You grab the red, you spray them red, bang. Then you come in with some green paint, do his eyes, bang. Come in with black, pick out the gun, pick out the little hoses, the little points in behind the knees, those are little ribbing things on behind the knees. You pick those things, you just pick the details out, right? Bang. You hit them with some gloss varnish. You slap the transfers on because the transfers aren't going to sit on top of the primer layer. The primer layer is just too bumpy. Okay, that's why I'm saying slap a gloss coat on it. But you got to wait for this thing to dry, right? Then you grab your transfers and you got your little Blood Angel transfer, slap it on, bang, give them a matte coat, and you're done. And so I think really that's probably the fastest way to get, like, say, a Space Marine tabletop ready, and that would look good, right? Because I mean, it would look pretty darn good, as long as you were, you know, mostly neat, and you had your base colors nice and smooth, and, you know, the transfers are uneven, and, you know, they weren't all wrinkly and, you know, stuff like that. I think it would look pretty darn good. It would, you know, people would go, wow, that looks pretty darn. And if, of course, if you cleaned your models properly as well, got rid of all the mold lines and stuff like that, yeah, I think it would look pretty darn sharp. Of course, you could get really fancy by, you know, giving a quick primer layer of black and then hitting like a tops with like a zenithal with a color, and then, you know, you got even more color depth, shadows and shading and stuff like that on the model. And then, of course, you follow the rest of the steps again. That's another option, right? Or do you guys really just need me to show you what it could be, what you can do with those Army Painter sprays? Yeah, maybe we'll have to do that. Who was it? Evil Party Girl. Is it something I'd consider? Yes, it is something I consider. And so after blabbing about it for a bit now, yeah, I would consider it. And maybe we will see a video on doing Space Marine as quickly as humanly possible in the fewest steps. Yeah, in the fewest steps. And so that is pretty much time for this sit and talk. Now we'll be switching over to our sit and vault session, where I answer vault member questions and continue on with this blathering on, of course. So for the next sit and talk, that will be MiniWarGamer Steve. So for any questions for him, leave them below at Steve. And of course, and if it's in response to anything I've talked about today, then leave it at Kris. And so we'll see you guys next week in the next sit and talk. Happy wargaming.